Okay, I'm here with Pastor Tim. Hey, Pastor, how are you?
Good. How are you tonight, Kevin?
Great. Look, I know you haven't got too long, so I thought we'd just get into just explaining why stem cells.
That's a very good question. Let me share a little bit about my background
Yeah.
first. I I am a pastor, which is how I got to know you and Finney
Yeah.
during my time of pastoring KICC Bali during the pandemic online. And over the years, part of my pastoral ministry has taken me into more than 280 trips in and out of China. And as part of my being a missionary, I've had my hand in a lot of medical stuff over the years. We've had a lot of trouble in our family, a lot of medical trouble and things. So I've had to learn a lot just in order for my family to survive and to be able to do my ministry. And I was sort of mentored by a lot of doctors over the last 32 years as I'd gone in and out of China, and they would give me medicines, antibiotics, and at times it was life saving for the people who went in there. So as a pastor, I've had an interest in the relationship between the spiritual and the medical. And also as a seminary teacher, I've taught classes on how to tell the difference between different things, and especially how to recognize medical situations so you can refer to a proper medical doctor rather than misinterpret something as being psychological or spiritually related when actually it could be a medical condition. So, connected to that, I've had my own personal experience. And last March, around March 7th or 8th, I was diagnosed with a terminal disease called pulmonary fibrosis. And this was probably as a result of using a CPAP machine to prevent sleep apnea that was developed by the Philips Corporation and then was recalled. And in the recall, they mentioned that many people had gotten lung cancer or pulmonary fibrosis from it and they died. And so there was a $1.3 billion settlement this year for everybody who was involved in it, as long as they fulfilled all the paperwork by the right time. So I didn't get any money from it. I just got pulmonary fibrosis from the CPAP machine
Ah,
and a terminal diagnosis in March.
yeah.
So
Wow.
I began to research what can I do about this, and I found out that there's actually no conventional cure under conventional medicine for pulmonary fibrosis. There's only two very expensive drugs that can prevent it from progressing. So I wasn't able to procure those drugs under my Taiwan national health insurance. And as I was researching these drugs, I found out that there were many clinical trials that had happened that showed amazing promise for a certain kind of stem cell, human umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cell transplant, not a human embryonic transplant, not adipose tissue transplant that comes from your fat cells, not an extraction from your bone marrow, but a stem cell transplant that comes from a human umbilical cord, which is harvested at birth after a C-section by a laboratory that's trained in how to hygienically harvest the cord and store it and then prepare the cells and use it. So when I realized there was a treatment, even though it wasn't approved in the US and it wasn't being used um, commonly in the US, I researched where they were doing it. And one of the places that kept on coming up as doing it better than most places was in Thailand, in Bangkok. So a friend of mine's stepdaughter donated her cord in April to me and to the lab that I had hired to be the collection and distribution agent for my stem cell cord. And then the lab banked it, prepared the cords, and put me in touch with Better Being Hospital, which is a functional medical center. And they advocate functional medicine, which is a holistic approach, which also involves stem cells. They put me in touch with BBH in Bangkok, and then I set up my treatment. And I went from not being able to talk without coughing, and I went from not being able to walk because I was so weak
Wow.
in my lungs to within 2 days being able to run up the SkyTrain stairs
Yeah.
in
Wow.
Bangkok. So I had a miraculous recovery
Wow.
in a very short period of time. And since then, I have shared the umbilical cord and stills from it with 15 friends. One of those friends has ALS, Lou Gehrig's
Yeah.
disease,
I
and he
understand.
went from not being able to walk in a month to being able to walk with a walker. He went from not being able to hardly talk to be able to talk. It's
Wow.
absolutely incredibly miraculous. And then another friend came, was treated for a stroke. One friend came, was treated for Parkinson's. Another friend came, was treated for essential tremors and pulmonary fibrosis from the same CPAP machine that almost killed me. Um, Many friends came for osteoarthritis treatments in their knees. And what I saw was just a lot of miracles since
Yeah.
my treatment and since sharing the cells. So I have enough cells that can be cultured from the cord. I have enough to help about 15 more people.
Okay.
Um,
What?
and
Mhm.
that's why I got in touch with you.
Okay, that's amazing. So it sounds quite incredible. So what the question might come up is, why isn't it, if it's so good, why isn't it used in the US? What's wrong with the US? Why aren't they using it?
Well, well, that question is a broader question. What's wrong with US healthcare? It's controlled by big pharma, and its goal is to keep you sick so that you'll continue to buy medicines. And both insurance companies can stay in business and big pharma can stay in business. So there's a huge lobby against stem cell treatment
Yeah,
because of this.
yeah,
The second reason is because in order for something to be considered a transplant, there needs to be no manipulation. And as cells differentiate from one generation into a next generation into a next generation, the US FDA doesn't consider it a stem cell transplant. They consider it manipulation of cells, which they don't allow.
right.
So, to make a long story short, those are the two main reasons. It's not that the studies don't advocate for the use of it. If you go and read the studies on human umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells that are being used for 70 different conditions right now in the U.S., or I mean, being studied in the U.S. If you read the studies, they all end with this words: "This treatment looks promising, but more research is needed." Every single one of them ends with those two sentences, and you just want to shoot people because they're denying people life-giving um, treatment. But having said that, let me step back and explain something that about the reason why the FDA doesn't approve it. Um, some people at who run these stem cell centers, they allow different generations of the cells, like that they call it T1, T2, T3, T4, T5. Like you've got the cell, and then the daughter cell that comes from the cell after it's differentiated, the granddaughter cell, and then all the some places differentiate, allow it to differentiate down to the fifth generation, and they still use the cells. At the lab that I work with, they don't do that. They only use T1 cells, and that's why there's a limit of how many people can be helped from the umbilical cord. So
Right.
in Mexico, especially, where most Americans go for their treatment, uh, the common the common patient receives a T3 treatment, and because we're not doing that in Bangkok with the lab that I'm working with, and the lab is huge. It takes up a third of a city block in Bangkok, and it supplies multiple different healthcare providers in Bangkok. Because we're doing it a different way, you have a much higher cell viability and a much greater efficacy of the cells. And this is part of the reason why we've seen such a quick turnaround in some people's medical condition, is because the efficacy of the cell is first generation, and the viability of the cells is extremely good because of the way that the cells have been kept and the way
Yeah.
that the lab has done its work.
Okay. Another quick question then would be, um, I just lost it. Hold on. Ah, what was it? Okay, I'll go back to what I've seen here. Why not? You've indicated you've already indicated this, so it's going to be a very quick answer. Why not use the normal medical system, the hospitals, for what, for example, Fenny has? Because you understand Fenny's condition, right?
Well, I do understand Finney's condition, but because of the immune system aspect of it, uh, what you can get through conventional medicine is basically a treating of the symptoms. You
Right.
can't revamp the immune system. When I did my stem cell transplant and I got IV infusions, it not only regenerated my lungs and healed the scar tissue, it delivered me of polycythemia vera, which is a rare form of red blood cell cancer that 6,000 people in the US have. My blood cancer's gone because my immune system was restarted
Yeah.
through it.
Yeah.
So human umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cell transplants is a division of what we call regenerative medicine.
Yeah.
And it's a different form of medicine from what my ALS friend calls sick medicine. And so my ALS friend told his doctor in the US, I don't want a sick doctor. You know, I want a regenerative functional
Yeah.
medicine
Okay.
doctor. So then he jumped on a plane, not jumped, he was carried onto the plane,
Yeah.
and then flew over to Bangkok and then spent a month at Better Being Hospital and now is doing much better than he was.
Wow. Another question then, because the hospitals, the traditional hospital medication treatment hospitals haven't really been able to actually diagnose anything with Fenny. So we're only working on symptoms here. How does that does the stem cell doctors need a diagnosis first? It sounds like, you had pulmonary, someone else had ALS, someone else had this
Mm.
Parkinsonism. Fenny's kind of condition is like, well, it could be AI, autoimmune. It may not be, hasn't been detected. Any any kind of comment on that on the subject?
Sure. If it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it is a duck, even
Yeah,
if you don't call it a duck. And so with the stem cell therapy, the doctors learn how to treat symptoms as well as possible underlying diseases that might be connected to the
yeah,
symptoms.
because
So for example,
yeah,
let me give you an example.
sure,
It comes from the lung diseases. Somebody doesn't have to have pulmonary fibrosis in order to respond to stem cell treatment. They can have COPD, they can have chronic bronchitis, they can have emphysema, or they can have
no,
pulmonary
yeah,
fibrosis, and or they can have long haul COVID,
yeah,
and
which is probably
it
what she's got.
treats
Yeah,
5 different lung conditions in the same way. So the doctors at Better Being Hospital, they've learned how to recognize not only how to diagnose underlying problems and try and treat those underlying problems with whatever medicine or technique or therapies they can. They've learned how to use regenerative medicine to then address things that wouldn't be addressed through conventional medicine that would allow the person to achieve ultimate resolution of the symptoms, regardless of whether or not that symptom has a label on it.
yeah. The body doesn't know what labels are. They don't care what the name is, right?
No, no.
And one of the things with Fenny, of course, is is her malnutrition and malabsorption and losing weight and significantly. And so three doctors, specialists have said that there's gonna have to be some kind of leaky gut there. I don't know whether you understand that term, leaky gut.
I do understand
Yeah.
that term, but let me address that. Human umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells is one of the only treatments other than surgery that can fully heal and cure Crohn's disease.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
also cures irritable bowel syndrome. I've
Right.
had irritable bowel my entire life. I no longer have it after my stem cell transplant. So
Wow.
I got that one for no cost. There is an amazing regenerative capacity that the stem cells have to stimulate healing of the bowel. So it's one of the key areas that can really, really positively respond to this form of therapy. So, given Finney's immune issues, which it's been really hard for people to diagnose, um, combined with her bowel and digestive tract malabsorption issues, she's a prime candidate
Right.
for this type of therapy. And I'll give you another anecdote. My wife is patient number 16 who had stem cell treatment. She had it over the last month, and she had extensive surgery on her bowels to deal with a rare form of cancer in 1994. She had radiation, and it seared her bowels shut. She has a lot of scarring and everything, and so it's been hell for her in many ways since 1994. Well, she's done the treatment, and things are much better
Okay.
down there. It's regenerating aspects of her digestive tract.
How long does
And
that regeneration come to its fulfillment? And obviously it takes time, right?
yeah, but she's like 3 weeks into it and already receiving quite a bit of
Wow.
benefit.
Wow. Okay.
So I'm saying there's two people, my household, myself and my wife, who
Yeah.
are firsthand
Yeah,
witnesses
absolutely.
to it.
Okay, so another question quickly, because I don't even got too much time, is this. Um, you know, how much is normally the cost of this? And we seem to be getting it at a price that is ridiculous to me, ridiculous because I've heard some crazy figures on stem cells.
Well, let's talk about this. There are different ways of receiving stem cell therapy, and most of the places in Bangkok are what I call a one-stop shopping. They provide the stem cells, they provide the doctor, they provide the additional therapy, and they actually administrate the cells. And if you take the amount of cells that Feni needs, which is 6 treatments of 50 million cells administered by IV, then you're looking at close to 200,000
Oh my God.
at most of the stem cell centers. And I know this because I called them all and interviewed them all before I made the decision to harvest my friend's cord
Yeah, yeah.
and ask her, could I have it and use it.
So,
So by working with the lab directly, who then works with a healthcare provider that simply diagnoses and administers it, you cut out
middlemen.
the
Yeah,
middleman
yeah,
markup
yeah.
where so many of the places make their huge profit.
Right.
So the only profit that's being made here um, is a small amount of profit from the lab,
Yeah.
but that's what they do. But
What
um,
about your profit, Pastor?
uh, well, I have been charging people 1,500 US dollars as as what I call a coordination fee because each patient has taken me um, between 15 to 35 hours
Right.
on average
And so you
of
should, yeah. Okay.
my direct involvement. So I tell people up front, I have a 1,500 US dollar
Yeah,
coordination fee because I have to be compensated
absolutely.
for my time, but
Yeah,
for my time. But this is a ministry for us, and we want to do two things. We want to share the cord that we have with as many people possible. And then we are actively recruiting other women who will donate their cords
wow.
so we can continue using this as a ministry by undercutting the price by
Yeah,
75%.
that's
So,
crazy. Yeah,
we're helping our friends save huge amounts of money.
yeah,
And that's really exciting.
yeah. It's very exciting, and thanks so much for this. Another question that comes to mind is this: um, there is every chance that this will succeed more than any other treatments, of course. Um, and I would like to know, really, the question is, what's the chance of success? What the risks are? Are there any risks? Are there any side effects? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Well, let's talk about first the effects. Let's say if Finney had no sickness, then receiving that amount of stem cells would help her immune system. It would help any organ, like for example, when people have cirrhosis of the liver, it can regenerate the liver as well. I had stage 3 kidney disease, and now
Wow.
it's moved my kidney disease back to stage 1. And in the time in the few months since I've done it, and when I have my next um, checkup, it might not even be there at all. So I'm just saying that what it does is the stem cells help deal with inflammation at any part in the body. The second thing they do is they deal with scarring, and then they deal with regeneration. So
Yeah.
they do three major things. They help the body do those three things. And a lot of Finney's issues are pain, internal pain, pain that people can't necessarily put their finger on it, pain that has led her into an extreme emotional duress at,
Yeah.
at times. She feels bad. Well, you get a stem cell treatment, and I can tell you from personal experience, you feel a lot better. It
Yeah.
takes years off of your internal life. So even if she didn't have anything
You
at all,
benefit from
she'd
it.
feel
Yeah.
a heck of a lot better by doing it. But some of these conditions, especially the internal pain, this is what I've discussed with Dr. Warowitz on a few occasions, and also with some of the people who have had their stem cell transplants. They feel on the inside much better than they did before. And the long haul COVID patients, they're another whole sector of this where they feel just so much better. And one of the big problems is fatigue.
Mm.
And when I had polycythemia vera cancer, I was fatigued a lot.
Mm.
I'll send you the video of my last 3 sets of pull-ups today in the gym.
Please do.
So so
I'll be
I did one
jealous.
pull-up, then I did two, then I did three, then I did four, then I did five, then I did six, then I did seven.
Wow.
And for a 63-year-old, and I'm talking military style wide grip, um, I have zero fatigue. I
Yeah.
have energy that I haven't had for years, and my blood oxygen is around 98 percent, and I'm back. So it just has so many blessings, and it doesn't have risks that some of the other stem cell treatments have. I know that there's one of the treatments out there that can stimulate cancer or tumor growth, but
Yeah.
not human umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells. They don't do that. It's completely different. And the problem is people say stem cells, and then all kinds of things go in their mind, is including human embryonic stem cells that they do in China, which is unethical as well as illegal in the US. And so people think all kinds of things, but we're talking about one specific kind of a magic bullet stem cell that's being used right now in 70 different conditions. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Okay. I've got someone else come on. Brighten my, is that David? It's okay. Anyway, so I know that you've got to finish soon. So yeah, all right. So the other question, okay, so side effects, uh, yeah, side effects. I mean, can something go wrong?
Um, Not that I've seen, not that I've read about, not that I've heard of. And I've asked the doctors that. And of the 15 people who have uh, who have gotten the side effect, the only side effect has been in one of the patients. It gave them um, extremely long and hard erections that necessitated medical attention because it
Yeah.
restored the virility to age 16.
Oh my
So
gosh.
that's been the only side
Yeah.
effect that anybody knows of is a
Well, I mean,
killer hormone.
how many patients have this hospital done in stem cells? You mentioned 14 or 15. That's not many. Of course, that's a personal one for yours. But
No, that's people that I brought to the
yeah.
hospital in the last 2 months.
So how many
Um,
patients have they
Hundreds.
been actually been kind of involved with that hospital and that stem cell?
Hundreds,
Hundreds.
hundreds. And while I
Okay.
was there, I mean, there was autistic children getting stem cells. Another one of the patients I brought had a ruptured disc in her back. But um, our doctor has done more than 2,000
Okay.
um,
Yep.
So it's a lot of patients and a lot of data to draw from.
Yeah. Okay, David, no problem. Don't worry about it. We're going to be finished now. I've recorded it anyway, so I'll show it to you, David. No problem. I think that's about it. Anything else you can think of? Oh, yes. The other, you said there's four types of stem cells. The one that you're talking about,
Yeah,
you've mentioned. The
right.
the other, here it is. The other three, because there's someone in Bangkok that we do know that had a low grade stem cell treatment, and it does not worked on his wife with Alzheimer, and he's probably spent some money on that. Um, and he said it is a very low level clinic, and he doesn't know what he thinks he's got the bad grade. He's heard of BBH Hospital, which is a very high quality hospital, but you've already spoken to that problem of other stem cells, and you mentioned a lot of people in China are using a different one, and they're having problems with that. So, is there only just one type? You mentioned that you won, the other three are not that good, or
No, the when you say stem cells, there's different types of
okay, there's
stem
four.
cell treatments.
Yeah,
One is human embryonic,
yeah.
where they take a fetus and grind it up and inject the
Mm.
cells.
Okay,
The second, that's unethical,
yeah,
and it also contributes to tumor growth. The
right.
the the second kind is human adipose tissue, where they take stem cells from your own body's fat cells, and then they create the stem cells. But the problem is the older we get, the
Yeah,
more the less efficacy there is
yeah,
on our stem cells.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so the third is getting stem cells from your bones, and then the fourth would be from a donor umbilical cord, human umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells from a cord that is harvested by a C-section delivery.
And that's
And
the one that
then,
we use. Yeah, that you use.
yep,
Yeah.
yep,
So
that's the one.
that's the only
That's
one
the
to
one
use.
that we use. So when you mention this Alzheimer's patient, the first question I have two questions. Number one is, what kind of stem cells did they use? And if it was human umbilical cord mesenchymal stem cells, my next question is, was it a vaginal delivery or um, a C-section? The third question I have is, what generation of cell was it? Was it T1, T2, T3, or up to T5? And then my last, I have a few other questions. My next question is what mode of administration did they use? Because someone with Alzheimer's should be part of the neurological protocol that involves four different injections, spinal injections, epidural injections, each of 25 million cells each, in addition to four different infusions of intravenous 50 million cells a pop. So I would want to know, did they do the amount of cells that was necessary? I've looked at the literature, and I've called these other places, and they use like 5 million cells.
Mm.
Um, or they use like 10 million cells or something like that. They're not using the amounts of cells. And so the problem is that this um this therapy is so unbelievably expensive
Yeah.
that
They
many of the
take
places, they don't
shortcuts.
use
Mm.
enough cells, or they don't use the proper administration. Depending on what the illness is, um, determines whether or not you give a shot into the kneecap, or whether or not you give an IV into the body, or whether or not you give an epidural into the spine. So uh, there's too much sloppiness in words here, to be able to get a clear
Yeah,
picture of
sure.
why
Yeah.
somebody's treatment, it didn't work. And that contributes to the ignorance that a lot of people have about this. I hear people, say stupid things to me like, "Oh, well, that can cause tumors, and that can cause problems." Like, yeah, if it was a human embryonic stem cell treatment, but it's not. So most people haven't taken the time that I've taken. I've taken literally hundreds of hours to research this. Right now, I'm about to go into a training program with the top doctor in the U.S., Dr. Joy Kong, so that I will be certified in stem cell administration, even though I'm not an MD, which allows me to be a medical consultant for people who are receiving stem cell transplants.
Yeah.
So
You
I've
never
spent
did
a
things
lot of
by
time.
halves.
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time learning about this because uh, let's talk about what Jesus did. Jesus fed people and he preached the gospel to people and he healed people. And so I believe that meeting people's physical needs and teaching them about salvation and also helping them be healed through any means possible is a very important part to what Christians ought to be doing. So I'm excited about this therapy because it's a cutting edge treatment for the future that can deal with all kinds of things, and because it saved my life. So I just want to share it, make it available to as many people as possible, and then bless the Lord that they've received a measure of healing that has increased their quality of life.
Well, God bless you, and thank you so much. And I think we've just kind of up our time, and I think you've answered every question that I've heard. And so I hope this is going to, well, I'm sure people will get a lot from this. And thanks so much, Pastor.
Well, Kevin, let me share if you or anyone in your family or if any's family has any questions, send them to me because as I'm working in a volunteer capacity at BBH in a medical coordinator position to try and
Awesome.
help as many people possible get treatment, but it means that I have access to the doctors for free for my questions to be answered.
Right.
So if you
Okay.
have any questions, send them on and I'll get answers.
Absolutely. And thank
Okay?
you so much for that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
God
Thanks,
bless you.
Pastor Tim, and God bless you. And I'll talk to you soon.
Take care,
Thank you
brother.
so
God
much for
bless.
your time. Thanks.
Okay,
Cheers.
sure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, David, for coming. I know you can't put the mic on and you can't put your thing on, but thanks. And if we have any questions, if I've recorded this, David, so you missed, the first three-quarters of the call, and so it's all there. And let's, I'll get the recording to everybody. All right. Thanks, David. Bye bye.